Do you think it's a learning moment?
Yes,
You do?
I really do.
What do you think you're going to learn from this?
Every life matters. Doesn't matter what skin color, doesn't matter who you are, you just got to be respected.
The words of young Tula Arenano with her dad, who wanted his children to be part of this moment of change, if only for a moment, as the protests got underway. Our crews following 3 simultaneous events tonight, 2 dueling protests at Cleveland Square Park, just south of the El Paso Museum of History. The Support El Paso Police Group and the El Paso for Black Lives Group both met there. Moving just across Santa Fe Street over to Southwest University Park, meanwhile, the Clint Independent School District hosted Horizon High School's graduation ceremony. Let's begin with ABC7 Seoul Signs, who was with the Black Lives Matter group in Seoul. This group did not stand still and marched as they called for the defunding of police.
No, Eric, as a matter of fact, ABC7 was with them every step of the way. And yes, just as you said, the demonstration where Black Lives Matter started right here at Cleveland Square Park alongside the group that was actually supporting the police and was condemning defunding of police. But then that protest side by side did not last very long as they started their march.
I know that the counter protest over there strategically put itself where we were going to be after the organizers received permits and clearance to be here.
Here to try to make sure protesters did not clash was this group, the Faith Peacekeepers. What you all are wearing, Faith Peacekeeper, does that mean that you will intervene if something happens?
You know, we're just here to help keep the peace with the community, to make sure that this is a peaceful experience for everybody.
But the Black Lives Matter group calling for defunding a police group did not stick around for a face-to-face with the opposing group. Instead, they began their march from Cleveland Square Park, marched to Paisano, turned on Mesa and stopped at San Jacinto Plaza, where the hundreds of Black Lives Matter group protesters took a knee in solidarity. It wasn't until the group returned to Cleveland Square Park that both sides clashed, but only verbally. There to stop it were the Faith Peacekeepers. And even then, the Black Lives Matter group did not stop right here at Cleveland Square Park. They continued the protest up to Sunset Heights, went all the way around, continued down to the county building, and just now, you can see them behind me, they've returned here to Cleveland Square Park. Reporting live near Cleveland Square Park, Seoul Signs, ABC7.
Okay, Seoul, and where were the police? They were escorting the protesters all night long, blocking streets as they walked all over downtown. We did see heavier law enforcement presence, including members of the National Guard at the El Paso County Courthouse and City Hall, but the patrol cars around marchers were their most visible presence. As we told you, there was another group supporting the police. Let's go now to ABC7's Brianna Chavez, who joins us live with that side of the story. She's live from Cleveland Square Park. Brianna.
Eric, well, the majority of that group showed up between 6 and 7 this evening. Right behind me, though, the El Paso for Black Lives group is gathering here at Cleveland Square Park. Things were pretty calm throughout the majority of the evening, but I want to show you what it looked like earlier this evening with the group that's supporting the police department. Several dozens came out waving American flags, holding signs that read, "We support our El Paso police," showing their support for the El Paso Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, and other local law enforcement agencies. And again, things are pretty calm as they even watched protesters calling to defund the El Paso Police Department in response to the death of George Floyd marched away. Now, during the gathering, organizers asked everyone to stay civil and peaceful, and among those here, Oath Keepers, a group made up mostly of retired law enforcement and veterans that claims to defend the Constitution. They were carrying loaded guns, actually, and they told me that the El Paso Police Department was aware that they were here, that they were serving as a buffer and a deterrent in case things were to get violent. And thankfully, that was not the case, but they mostly just came out to support local law enforcement, just like everybody else that showed up this evening.
We're not here as any type of law enforcement capacity. We're just a deterrent for anyone that should try to cause harm to our law enforcement, because let's face it, I mean, not every cop is a bad cop.
We're almost on a year anniversary of August 3rd, and we go from so much support for our law enforcement, they're the ones that ran towards Walmart, to less than a year later, them being painted with the same brush as the terrible officers from Minneapolis. Those officers, absolutely inexcusable what they did, but that's not our police department.
And there were a few moments where protesters from both sides of the group did clash. When the protesters from El Paso Black Lives came back around to Cleveland Square Park the second time, that's when things started to get a little aggressive. People were arguing back and forth, but people were able to separate. Thankfully, it did not get violent. Earlier this afternoon, though, police put up barriers here in Cleveland Square Park because we weren't quite sure if both groups were going to gather there and stay there, but it really wasn't necessary. The majority of the group for El Paso Black Lives did march away. The group for supporting the police was here until about 8:30, and then they all left. If you were watching our coverage, you did see them leave earlier this evening. So, of course, it was a pretty calm protest compared to some of the other ones that we've seen, but we're going to continue to cover this. As you can see right behind me, the El Paso for Black Lives group is still here. We're not quite sure how much longer they're going to be here, but we're going to be here for a while, and we're going to continue our coverage on air and online at KVIA.com. Live in Cleveland Square Park, Brianna Chavez, ABC7.
Okay, Brianna, and our thanks to the ABC7 crews who live streamed on KVIA.com for hours tonight following all three of those events. And we are